Welcome, everybody, to the Whiskey One channel. I'm Israel, and I have a few guests lined up for our latest podcast. And I thought, I have a few people that have supported me over the years, and I've supported and really just helped build the community when it comes to this whiskey stuff. But I thought, why not, showcase these guys, let them tell their story and a little bit about why they decided to do the whiskey tubing. And without further ado, we're going to kick off this podcast. And I'd like to introduce, starting with Drew Hannush from Whiskey Lore. How you doing?
Doing good. How you doing, Israel?
Doing great. Doing great.
Good.
And then I also have Ed from Bourbon Obsessed.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And then we have Charlie from Multi-Casking.
Heck yeah, let's go.
Let's go. Now, Charlie's, he's not a solo act. His wife is usually with him on his channel, and her name's Jean. I don't know her last name. Forgive me.
Same as mine, Byers. Charlie Byers, Jean Byers.
All right. Well, all right. So again, I'm excited to have you guys on. I have been following you for years. I feel like in different ways, either we've supported each other on our YouTube channels or Instagram or Facebook, and here we are. And I really wanted to get an opportunity to have you guys share your story and to kick things off. The first thing I'd like to know, starting with you, Drew, is how can we find you? For those watching, what is the best way to find your content?
I'm all over the place, actually. I have written multiple books. So I have 2 travel books out there that are available on Amazon called Experiencing Irish Whiskey, Experiencing Kentucky Bourbon, and then The Lost History of Tennessee Whiskey, which is a history book, if you really want to dive in deep. I also have the podcasts that I do. I do 2 different podcasts. One is Whiskey Lore. The other is Whiskey Lore, the interviews, which are on your regular podcast feeds. One of them is I'm doing a series called Whiskey Flights, where I actually take people through the theater of the mind to go travel to a distillery along with me, and then kind of give them some travel advice in getting there, and then do an interview with someone at the distillery to give them the whole feel. And I go all over the world for this. And so that's Whiskey Lore, the podcast. And then Whiskey Lore, the interviews, is where I deep dive and do the hour and a half to 2 hours in deep with historians or that sort of thing as well. And then I'm putting together a travel guide on whiskey-lore.com, which is going to have all of these distilleries that I'm going to visit so that people can actually go in and put distilleries on their wish lists and then store those and be able to. We're working right now on AI to try to get it to where you can actually interact with all the information I'm putting in there and build your own itinerary. So lots of stuff going on with that. So I'm in a lot of places, and I have my YouTube channel, youtube.com/whiskey lore. So I do tastings and education there. My tastings are more education based than they are necessarily telling you the latest thing that's out there.
Awesome. Fantastic. And I'll be sure to add your tags here when we do the post. So starting with you, Ed, talk to me. Where can people find you?
Well, I started out mainly being a website, so bourbonobsessed.com, and the goal of that originally was to write about distilleries. So I actually have a whole bunch of information about distilleries. I was starting out mainly being Kentucky focused, but then it's spread out more. I also had the first interactive map of all the licensed Kentucky distilleries, not just the ones that were on the trails or part of the KDA. So it was everything and the list and an interactive map of both of those. And I think I still do. I mean, a lot more now have joined the KDA, so there's fewer that aren't, but there's still some that aren't. So that's the all-inclusive. And that's always actually driven quite a bit of traffic to the website before I had some issues with Google and my hosting company, but we won't talk about that.
Gotcha.
So we're getting back. So then, I realized that you need a little more nowadays, and I'm 61, so I'm a little old for the whole social media world, but I still do it. So I dove right in and I got on the Instagram, where I'm bourbon obsessed, bourbon_obsessed, and I have a Facebook, Bourbon Obsessed, and a TikTok that I'm trying to use a little bit more, and a little bit on X, but mainly those. But anyway, so then, I started really actually liking Instagram, and I liked the whole community and all the people that I was meeting, online during the pandemic, and many of whom I've now met in person as the years have gone on and we've all gotten out to do things again. So I'm really happy that I wound up heading into the social media world. So that's sort of
Yeah,
me in
same
a
here.
nutshell.
Fantastic. All right, Charlie, how about you? Where can people find you guys?
Well, those guys are awesome. I'm born. You can find me at 455 North. No, I'm not giving you my address. No, YouTube. YouTube.com/multi-casking. Let's go. I'm boring. You can find me on YouTube. I have an Instagram account. I don't use it, so let's just stick with YouTube.
All right, nothing wrong with that. Speaking of YouTube, I love watching you guys' videos, and it's interesting that you guys got into the whole slushy cocktail video making. So you definitely evolved. Yeah, and we'll get into that here in a second.
Yeah, you're good.
For sure. All right, so now that folks know how to get a hold of you and where to find you, I think the first thing that comes to mind is like, why did you guys start this in the first place? Like, what got you into doing either the podcasting, making videos, writing books about whiskey? Drew, what got you into this?
I was a really bored web developer. I had gotten my business going I actually read a book called The 4-Hour Work Week, which I encourage anybody to read that book if you really want to kind of optimize your life. And if you're running your own business or you're trying to find time and carve it out, because that's what I was doing. I found I was just sitting in the office all day while everybody else was doing the programming, and I was just reading emails all day and trying to find busy work to do. And so I decided I wanted to travel. And so I actually started I took some miles that I had on my American Express card, and I flew to Paris. But when I went to Paris, I had 16 days, and I'm like, I can't just spend 16 days in Paris. I will be bored. I like to be on the move. So I decided to plan out a trip where I did 16 days of going to every James Bond location I could find across Europe. And had a great time doing that. Decided to blog about it. I started a blog called Travel Fuels Life. And it's interesting because I started joining up with the travel community, and there's a big community, a lot of people who just travel and that's all they do and write about it and make a little bit of money off of doing that, enough to survive. And I found that I got tired of just going places and taking pictures at the places that everybody else was taking pictures at. And I wanted to do something different. And when I came back to the US after the James Bond trip, I was like, I don't know anything about whiskey. And my friends and I are talking about bourbon like we know what we're talking about. I said, I'm going to go to Kentucky and I'm going to learn. And so I did a trip where I did, was it 19 distilleries in 8 days, and just immersed myself, and I video blogged about it. And
very cool.
People really enjoy that content, and I felt I was teaching people, but I was learning myself, and I loved the history that surrounded it. And so I started a history podcast where I was dispelling all of the stuff that I was hearing on the tours that contradicted stories that contradicted, or was Elijah Craig really the father of bourbon? What's the story behind that? And so I started using my storytelling skills to do that podcast. And then I was at a podcast convention, and they said, if you can teach somebody something, you should write a book about it. And I thought, well, why don't I teach people how to do the bourbon trail? And so I wrote my Experiencing Irish Whiskey book, or my Kentucky bourbon book off of that, just basically taking my video blog and turning it into a book. And then I followed that with the Irish experience, which was me going to 50 distilleries. I was told when I went over there, nobody had ever done that before, that the industry is so new, that I was basically breaking ground on the Irish whiskey industry over there and what was going on. So it just all evolved from there. And my brain is constantly moving, and I'm constantly thinking of how can I do something else that would be interesting to people. And in the meantime, get my researching going as well. And the YouTube channel actually came out of me not knowing how to taste whiskey. I grew up in a family where we ate Pennsylvania Dutch cooking, which had no spices whatsoever. We ate food to eat food. We didn't care what it tasted like. And I decided that I would use the YouTube channel to educate myself and my listeners at the same time as I'm going to the 250 plus distilleries that I visited over that time period. And, so it just kind of worked out that way that I learned how to taste because I had to do it in front of a camera, and I was bad at it at first, but I slowly started getting better, and to the point where I feel like now I can talk to distillers about tasting notes and not feel like I'm off in left field somewhere. So
Hmm.
it's been a
So,
journey.
so you have a rich background of why you did it. It wasn't just spur in the moment.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, to me, I think to travel, which is always going to be the backbone of everything I do, you do have to have a purpose. It's not fulfilling to just keep going places to go places.
Well, sir, I love hearing about that, about your start. Ed, what about you?
Well, mine is I love, as you can see. I mean, this is like a teeny weeny bit of the amount of whiskey that I have, and so I mean, the Bourbon Obsessed was very appropriate, so that's where the name came from. But so I wanted to do something in bourbon, but I was looking for a niche that hadn't really been filled, and I mean, I know y'all do the podcast and YouTube, but I thought there was were a lot of podcasts out there, already, and there's always new ones that are still popping up. I wanted to do something different. The YouTube, well, I mean, because of what my prior job was, I'm not like a spy or anything, but didn't show myself back in those days because I didn't think it necessarily blended well with what my job was before I retired.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't want to do anything where I was, face forward on that. So that sort of made the YouTube, not really an option. And likewise for the videos of me on Instagram and stuff like that. But the one thing that there wasn't, I mean, that, it's not the cool thing anymore, but is the website stuff. And, people still look things up on the web all the time. So
Right.
I thought that was useful, and that was a good way for me to get into it. I like writing. I sort of have similar to Drew. I mean, I visited tons of distilleries, and we did a lot of write-ups on the distilleries. They got more and more detailed as time went on, and then I started out, the goal was to write about what it was like for people just to visit and take the regular tours. But quickly that didn't work out because, I was always lagging behind the tours trying to get the pictures. My wife was, taking some notes. I was missing half of what they were saying. It was a good idea, but it was impossible to execute. So, we did some of that, but then after that, we sort of had to start arranging our own, tours, and that's when the write-ups got a lot more detailed because I obviously got more information. I mean, I didn't want to be the people on, the basic tour, the guy that's asking like every stupid question that, nobody else on the tour is interested in. Whereas when you have your own tours, you can get all those questions answered. And so
Mm-hmm.
then we put all that in, in writing. And I had written a book. I was an editor a while on a medical book a long time back, and that was so much work for so little gain. I was not going to do that again. But maybe Drew is smarter than me because if you've been to my website, I have tons of stuff I could turn into a book in a similar way. But I don't think I'm going to do that. I'll probably stick with the website for now. But yeah, so we sort of had very, very similar courses. And my goal in all this was I wanted something to do, that was useful when I retired. I mean, I guess I don't know how useful I am, but I mean, something to
I get it.
keep me busy, keep me out of trouble. Although, again, I don't know how spending all your time around bourbon keeps you out of trouble necessarily, but you know, whatever. That's what happened. So that's what happened. So as I retired, I mean, this has become, the thing that I spend most of my time on. Either reviewing whiskeys, which is another thing I had no intention of doing originally because I thought, there were already way too many people doing that. But then, it actually drives probably 70% of the traffic to my website. So, I was wrong about that. So apparently I've been wrong about a lot of these things, but it's gradually been working out. So
Yeah, it's
yeah,
good to be
that's
wrong.
that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Sweet. Sweet, man. How about you, Charlie?
Well, let me tell you exactly why I started a whiskey YouTube channel. So I became allergic to beer, right? That's stupid. That sucks. Who becomes allergic to beer late in life? But I did.
That's
And
a
one of
horrible
my
condition.
great friends, or two of my really good friends, are Scott and Bart from the Scotch Test Dummies. Known them for 30 years, 20 years, 25 years, a lot of years, many years. I've known those two. And I already had, so I do a big, I'm one of those guys you see like on the Great Christmas Light Fight, the extreme Christmas light guys. I do a lot of work with ABC, Great Christmas Light Fight, and I already had that going on the Christmas side of things. So I knew how to do a whiskey channel. And Bart's like, man, what are you doing? You got to do a whiskey channel. Come on, you already do the Christmas side of it. You already know how to do it. You own all the equipment. Just do it. So I learned. My wife Jean, who's today's our boy's 21st birthday, so she's baking some cakes. That's why she's not here with me. But yeah, Bart's like, you got to do it. So Gene and I sat down. We went and got our first bottle of Jameson Caskmates, because the Scotch Test Dummies, Scott and Bart, were reviewing that. You know, we're going to take this journey with them. We're going to use them as a tutorial. We're going to sit down. We're going to drink whiskey. We're going to nose it. We're going to taste it as they are. And we're going to learn, damn it, how to drink whiskey the correct way. So we took about a year and a half doing that in different various channels. And like, hey, wife, come on, do a YouTube show with me. She's like, no, I don't want to do a YouTube show. Come on, damn it, do a YouTube show with me. So after needling her for about a year, she finally caved in, because the point of this, husbands, because you know we all need husbands' advice on how to have a great marriage. If you bug your wife long enough, she just says yes. Yeah. So
I find it's the other way around.
YouTube channel, and it's just a freaking blast. I get to hang out with my best friend, who's my wife. We get to drink whiskey. We get to have a great time. We did the Kentucky Trail, just like you, but we did 15 in 5 days versus 19 in 8 days. Anyway, going to distilleries is just freaking awesome. And you know what going to distilleries does for you when you have a YouTube whiskey channel? Hashtag tax deduction. That's right. Let's go. So I started it because it's fun. I already knew how to do it from the Christmas side of things, and it gives me more time to hang out with my wife. And I can't drink beer anymore, so I needed something new to drink, because that's what we do here in America. We adapt. So that's why we started multi-casking.
So yeah, it makes me sad that you can't drink beer anymore, because I'm a beer guy. I'm a beer snob, and that's actually where I got started, was drinking beer and barrel-aged stouts, and I'm still drinking barrel-aged stouts, although now as I get older, I'm kind of paying the price for it with a dad bod. At least that's what my kids tell me. I have the dad bod. They let me know every chance they get.
Yes,
all right.
Are freaking delicious. I just wish I could drink them. If I have a Guinness on a Friday, I have a migraine through Sunday. So beer's just out, unfortunately.
All right. So I'm gonna segue a little bit here. But before I do, I'll keep mine short and sweet. The reason I started my whiskey channel was only because my friends my kids convinced me to do it. They said they were glued to the TV and watching YouTube all the time. So as you may imagine, they're little kids and they're watching, I forget the name of the channel, but the kid they're watching is like constantly opening up new packages, new toys, unboxing. So they're usually putting Legos together or something. And they're like, Dad, you have a lot of whiskey bottles. You should do your own YouTube channel. And I thought, well, I mean, I have like 30 or 40 at the time. I didn't think that was a lot to do or enough to do a channel, but it was enough. And that's literally why I started a YouTube channel. Anyway.
It has probably grown since then, I'm guessing, that collection.
Do you really want to know?
Do you have a count? Because I don't even have a count of mine anymore at this point.
I have a count. The only reason I have a count is somewhere around like 100, 200 bottles. I accidentally started buying bottles that I already had. So I thought, as painstaking as this is going to be, let me start like writing down what I have, and I keep it on my phone. So I have a note of all the whiskeys I have. Anyway.
We have a whole spreadsheet because
I'm a spreadsheet guy too.
Not to embarrass, but because I'm in the multi-thousands. It's out of hand.
Oh man.
Okay. I thought my flex was pretty good. You're in the multi-thousands. Never mind.
If you're
I think
sitting there,
Bourbon Obsessed is the right name.
Yeah, truly obsessed.
You don't want to buy a backup bottle of something you already have. So spreadsheets are awesome. We keep it on our phone so we can access it at any time. Like, we already got that one. We're not going to buy it. So.
Yep. Same
Oh
here.
no, we check it all the time because I'm in a store and I'm like, oh, that looks interesting, and my wife will be, you've got it. And that'll be into that.
So I see you guys are sipping on some stuff. At least Charlie is. I think Ed's sipping on something. But what are you guys sipping on?
You want to go first, Ed?
Well, I was going to say I bought mine in Kentucky. I use Kentucky as my place to go to buy scotch. It's because nobody in Kentucky is buying scotch, so I go and I find the great deals because it's I am probably more of a scotch now, the new Irish whiskey world, a rye drinker. Bourbon started at near the top for me, and then it slowly has kind of worked its way down as I've developed this palate for all sorts of other whiskeys. So you'll find that I have a lot of bourbon in my house, but most of what I have or that I buy myself will end up being scotches and ryes and American single malts and that sort of thing. So still trying to stretch the palate. But I found this. I went into a little liquor store in Louisville, and I was looking around. The guy, as soon as I walk in, he's trying to sell me. And I don't want to be like, well, I kind of know. And you have a very limited supply, so I'm not sure you're going to break something new on me here. But I think those guys in Kentucky, they get so used to people coming in going, do you have Weller? Do you have some Pappy? Do you have, that they kind of push that on you first and say, and I'm like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. My bourbon is Four Roses. I'm really fine with my bottle of Four Roses, and I can pick some other stuff out here or there, but I don't chase bourbon so much as I will look for other stuff outside of that. And I looked up on the top shelf, and he had a bottle of Talisker Dark Storm, which is it's not something that you can buy. Maybe you can now, but you weren't able to buy it because it was a travel retail. So you could only find it in travel retail. And whenever I travel, I'm always doing connecting flights. So I can't necessarily buy the stuff that they have in travel retail. So it frustrates me. And then I saw it, and the guy had to call the owner of the shop to find out how much they were going to charge me for it, because they had no idea. Nobody had ever asked them, and it was dusty. So I was like, okay, they're either really
you got a good deal on it.
But it was $100, and I looked up later on, it's a liter size, and it was probably more than I would have spent if I'd have gotten it at travel retail, but I couldn't buy it at travel retail. So it was fine, and I brought it home, and I was like, wow, this is great. So it was worth the $100 to spend on it.
What about you, Charlie? What are you sipping on?
Well, I reached for a Macallan for vintage clothes, but this is my unopened bottle, and if I open that, Jean will hear it and come down and throttle me, because she thinks I'm all castrate Macallans. So I went with my bourbon of the year last year, which was the Grayson out of Texas. This is the first one they cranked out. This is just a Texas blend, 119 proof. But yeah, Grayson's doing some cool stuff. She popped around the corner. She heard me say Macallan. But this is I didn't open it. You're good. But that's a Grayson. It's a blend out of Texas. It's a bunch of owners. It's actually I think it is actually the first black-owned Texas distillery. But that was my whiskey of the year last year, and it's freaking dynamite. I'm on a Texas kick right now. Anyway. So we popped up with some Balcones last night. So
a man of my tasting. I like that. Yeah, I'm a Balcones guy. You know that. And lately I've been getting into Garrison Brothers quite a bit. Yeah, something about
if you can find the Garrison Brothers Silver Top Cask Strength, snag 2 of those bad boys up. They're hard to find anymore, and they're freaking delicious.
What about you, Ed?
Well, I do what I do with all the bourbon that I'm floating around here. So you mentioned it. So here's a bottle of the Grayson. So it's made at Iron Root, and it is a collaboration between, but that's where it gets put together, and it's a collaboration between a number of different Texas distilleries. And I'm a huge Texas whiskey fan because my wife is actually from. I live in Kentucky, so forget that. But no. My wife is from Dallas, so I'm allowed to say that. So we go down there frequently, and we actually stop at Iron Root on on every trip. So I'm usually there like twice a year, and they're great people, and their whiskey's really good. So that's actually where it's put together. But yeah, it's a collaboration between a number of the Texas distilleries. But what I'm drinking is what one of my most recent reviews is. It's a 15 stars, Three Kings. So I don't know if you're familiar with them and this, but this is an interesting blend of bourbon, rye, and wheat whiskeys, and they're aged 11 and 15 years. And these guys are a father and son team. I'm not getting paid to say that, but they did give me the ball. Uh, but Rick and Ricky, and I've had a bunch of the things that they've done, and their blending skills are honestly phenomenal. All these things, I mean, granted, that is a bit older whiskey. It's 11 and 15, but they get these great flavors out of it, and they all have that, older whiskey kind of taste without being over oaked, and they're very well balanced. I've been very impressed with all of them, and this blend is also really good.
Very cool. So this is not the first time you've whipped out the 15 stars. I've seen your reviews. You talk about 15 stars quite a bit, and
I'm a
and
big
not
fan.
just you, but quite a few people are. I just don't see it out here in New Mexico. So hoping that one day that changes. But if you're wondering what I'm sipping on, this here's a rye. It's a Smoke Wagon bottled and bond. Matter of fact, this Friday next week, I'm going to be sitting down with Aaron Shebnick of Smoke Wagon, and they're coming down here for the Albuquerque Whiskey Society Smoke Wagon event. So I'll be talking with him and picking his brain a little bit about Smoke Wagon, and then why not talk about a little rye and enjoy some while we're at it.
Cheers.
All right. The next thing I really wanted to know, like from you guys, was what's a big project that you've always wanted to do that you don't necessarily have the time, the resources, money, what have you, that you have in the back of your mind you really want to get done, but you just haven't had the chance to. And I'll this time I'm going to start with Charlie.
Well, top of my head, it's got to be going to Scotland and Ireland and spending 3 months hitting every single distillery. Gene's Irish. She's something like 76% Irish or something. I am 98% British. So that's where our lineage is at. But as far as a big project, I don't know if I'd call it a project, but dang, that's going to be fun. Of course, we filmed there. Gene and I just we got invited. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Kiro Distillery. They're big in rye. They won best gin in the world a few years back in Iso-Kiro, Finland. But they invited us up there last December. We got to stay. They put us up there. Beautiful 9-bedroom home. We're just in there by ourselves, had our own sauna, house and everything. Just phenomenal. I love going to Europe to travel and see distilleries. So that's probably our big project is one day, probably within the next 5 years, hitting up everything in Scotland and England, or Scotland and Ireland.
Definitely a dream of mine too, man. You're not alone. If I ever get the chance, I want to definitely go to Scotland. How about you, Ed?
Well, there's even the simple things are big tasks. I have so many different articles and things that I've wanted to write for the website that are bigger things than just doing the reviews or the distillery things, more things that not necessarily take more work, but I can never get to because I'm always doing either the bourbon reviews or the distillery stuff, or just making the website work. I mean, the whole all that and SEO. I mean, don't you spend a whole bunch of time on all that back end stuff that because I'm a one person show. My wife helps
Right.
with the distillery write-ups, but otherwise it's just me, and the technical stuff can start taking large amounts of time. So that seems like an insurmountable goal to just get those articles done. My truly insurmountable goals would be, sort of like you guys. I mean, I would like to taste, pretty much everything in the
Yeah, no
whiskey
doubt.
world and visit every distillery. I would love to get over to the ones in Europe as well. And then I'm also interested in, checking out like the Armagnac ones and I mean, a lot of different things. I'd like to see it all. I mean, I find all the distilling things fascinating. Honestly, I love wine and beer too. So I mean, I like it all. I could spend my day just going to all of those things. So
Yeah, no
my
doubt.
goal is to just visit as many of them as I can.
Okay. So Drew, you're a writer. You've been around. I don't want to say you've been around the world, but you kind of have been around the world.
Well,
You've done a lot
both
of things
sides
that
of the
these guys
Atlantic.
want to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's a big project that you want to do?
Well, I am working right now on trying to get the website built out to where I basically am taking these whiskey flight episodes that I'm doing for each individual distillery and turning those into actual trips. Because the way I'm doing it right now is uh, I'm researching and finding out and using my travel knowledge to help me kind of build out these episodes and then talking to the people at the distilleries to get some tips and suggestions about traveling in the area and that sort of thing. But I'm actually taking off tomorrow to head to the Midwest, and I'll be going to 14 distilleries between Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Indiana. And that is all for me to do these Whiskey Flight episodes in person.
Hmm.
And then that way I actually am talking from experience of I've been to these places and can give that background. So my dream is somewhat like you guys' dream in that I would like to be able to turn this into a full time where I'm actually able to travel the globe, go to all these different distilleries, experience it, tell people about the experience, get them excited about it. Go to places like probably number one on my list right now is Tasmania. To me, Tasmania sounds like Isla, but it's just the modern version of Isla because here's this little island where there are multiple distillers I have talked to who have said, "Oh, I went to Tasmania and they were all so helpful there, and boy, that industry it's amazing down there." And it's like,
Oh,
it's kinda like seeing Kentucky or Scotland at its infancy.
Hmm.
Here's your chance to see something really growing up or the way Ireland is coming back right now.
yeah.
So, that would be fun for me, and, I mean, I've talked to Riashi in, Lebanon, and, to be able to hear how different distilling is there and their thought process on distilling, going to these different countries, Taiwan, it'd be fun to just see all these different cultures and understand how they evolved their whiskey, over the years.
Okay, so I just wanted to throw this question out because I've heard people say it, and I know you would agree with me from the what we've all just said. But there are people out there that say, I've been to one distillery, I've been to them all, I've seen everything. I think nothing is more far from the truth. Every single one has different ways of doing things, different stories behind it. There's always something. I mean, I don't know how anybody could say that. I learned something every time I go somewhere, and I love seeing all the different ways of doing it. It confuses me how people can make that statement, honestly. I just was interested in your thoughts because I'm sure you've heard it from people.
Well, I don't know if that
Yeah.
question was for me. Was it for me or Drew?
Everybody.
Okay, so I haven't been to as many as Drew. I'll just put that out there. I visited I want to say 6 or 7 different distilleries, and by different, it's a different whiskey that they make entirely, right? Not one
Yeah.
is anything close to the next. When it comes to craft distilleries, which is probably 3 or 4 out of those, the personality is different, the people are different, the vision is different. When you go to a bigger one, you're at a big distillery, and it can sometimes feel a little impersonal, whereas the smaller
Yeah.
craft ones, they kind of bring you in like their family, like you're part of their family or their fabric. So I mean, maybe that's the nuance that's a bit similar. And these days there's so many new startups, and maybe that's what people are seeing is like, hey, I keep coming across a lot of new startups, and they're all the same. They're coming out with maybe some gin, some vodka, a couple of things to pay the bill, pay the bills, and then they're hopping into the good stuff.
I learned something at every distillery I go to. There's just not a point where I get bored with it because and I understand that there are people who, they wanna maybe get a vision of what distilling is like, and that's all they're really interested in. Beyond that, they're not as, but I'm not a science guy, and yet the science is what really fascinates me. So every distillery I go to, I learn a little bit more about the science. I learn about techniques that they're using. They're going to do something a little different than somebody else. The surface stuff is always similar, but there's always an opportunity to learn something. And then you learn about the area that you're in from the people.
Right.
That's the other thing, is that
That's
you know
huge.
you do start to understand that we're all different. That's what I love about travel, is that when you go to different states, different countries, you get a chance to meet real people, and you start to find out that all these people really, at our heart, we're very similar to each other in wants and desires, but there's complexity in there, and we all have unique personalities, and it's fun to see that and learn that along the way. So it's not just seeing the equipment. And if you're just looking at equipment, yeah, you're probably going to get bored pretty quickly. But I tend to look for the nuance, and that's what has kept me fueled through all these different distilleries that I've gone to.
Yeah. What about you, Charlie?
Every distillery is freaking awesome. We talked about Iron Root earlier. Gina and I spent 5 hours in the barrel room down in Denison, Texas, with Marcia and John, and I'm blanking on John's brother's name. But they're like, "Hey, what do you want to try? You want this barrel, that barrel, that barrel, that barrel?" Spent 5 hours going barrel to barrel. If anybody who spends 5 hours in Iron Root's barrel room, you will be a whiskey distillery fan for life. So yeah,
I did.
Whiskey distilleries are freaking fun.
Yeah.
Just awesome. Like in Bardstown, if you guys have been to Bardstown Distillery, but they are the only, at the time, back in 2021, they were the only one who had a bar inside of a rick house. And it's just fun. Just go to distilleries is just awesome. And the science of it is freaking cool. You get to learn how they call it, this is whiskey beer. Like, yeah, it's freaking awesome is what it is. And just we all know the smell of the fermentation room and the smell of a rick house, and it's just like home. But distilleries are just fun to go to all the time. Without it.
Yeah, I agree. I never get tired of it. I mean, I spent half my time in Bardstown, and I've been to all the distilleries there many times, and I can continue to go to them every day. It doesn't tire me. And then I love going to new ones for the same reasons. And there's nothing like experiencing some firsthand and actually being there and spending some time in the area and talking to the people.
Well, I know we got sidetracked as far as like, all right, let's talk about those distillery visits and that distillery experience. And there is one more question I really wanted to ask you guys, but as far as like big projects on my side, I've always wanted to write a book, but not write a book. Then I know that doesn't make a lot of sense at first. So here's what I'm talking about. I started to do something on Instagram where I called it the Land of Enchanted Whiskeys. And in a nutshell, I find beautiful places across New Mexico, which is known as the Land of Enchantment. And I review a different whiskey, and showcase, that shot or that landscape, wherever it is that I'm at, and tie it together with that whiskey. But what I want to do is actually publish a book where I showcase different beautiful places throughout New Mexico and different reviews. Nothing more than that. Again, it's not meant to be a bestseller. Who knows? But I won't be writing like 500 pages or nothing like that. But something short and simple, but really like bringing an emphasis to the beauty of New Mexico and the beauty of different whiskeys that I love and enjoy.
I have to say that I love the idea, because what I was shocked by when I went to New Mexico, I did like a October Four Corners tour and went to all 4 states of the Four Corners. And New Mexico was the one that I was probably least excited about going to visit. And yet it was the one that I walked away going, man, this place is awesome. There's some really interesting. I found a little ghost town called Chloride, New Mexico. It's way out in the middle of nowhere. But
which is a lot of New Mexico.
Yeah, but it was like, it was just lost in time. It was this town that shut down in 1897, and some people from Wisconsin came down, started it, turned it into a historical exhibit, basically, and you can basically walk back into 1897 and see the silver boom era,
Oh,
which is
that's fast.
fascinating.
Yeah.
So yeah, fun stuff.
Well, I've never actually heard of chloride, so the fact that you mentioned that and I never heard of it, now I want to go check it out. I
Yeah,
want to go
we
back in time.
get an Old West bottle and take it out there.
Well, the thing about that project is I never consider myself to be a photographer. In spite of the Instagram pictures I have to do because it's for the gram. I mean, I try to get a good shot. I work at it, but I'm not a photographer. And I have a few buddies that are like good photographers, and I've tried to like pair with them and do it, but it comes down to time. I wish I was retired, my buddy was retired, or my buddies were retired, and we just like travel New Mexico and do the thing. And who knows, put something together. So it may happen in the future, who knows, but if you see it, you know where it came from. All right, guys. So the last question I had for our segment is, what whiskey are you eyeing the most this year in 2024? Is it something that has already come out and you're still hunting for it? Or is it something that you know is coming and you're going to be like trying to be the first in line for it?
Well, for me, that's a really tough question because I kind of just eyeball things as I go along, and so I guess I'm so busy planning everything else that whiskey isn't something I'm necessarily planning out. It's like, okay, if I'm going to do this trip in the Midwest, I want to discover the different types of whiskeys that they have up there, and really kind of get into wherever it is I'm going and getting a feel for it. So it's really interesting that you asked that question because for some reason I'm never really in that mindset of trying to think about, it's like back when I was collecting record albums, there was always one that I was on the hunt for. So I understand that desire to find something, but I have not done that with whiskey really.
Okay. Nothing at all, huh?
No,
Okay.
I would say I would have said that, and then I found Dark Storm, and I'm like, "Oh, look, there's a bottle, and I'll go get it." So I guess that's just me. Maybe it's my, squirrel syndrome, my ADD kicking in that I just get it drawn to something as soon as I see it.
Are you a Lefroy fan?
I am. I'm a friend of Lefroy and actually put the boots on at the distillery and walked out and planted my flag out by.
Oh, no
I'm
way.
actually within sight distance of King Charles' big monument that he has. We get a little flag. He gets a big monument.
So I'm
It's good to
asking
be king.
because the the Cargis is coming out. So I figured, that's something that they come out with new every year. Are you looking
Oh
forward to
man.
that at least?
I would look forward to that. I think the thing is it depends on the release. I think one of the best whiskeys I ever had was their PX cask release of the Cartus, which was
Mm, mm.
amazing. I posted a picture of it
Huge
on
fan of that.
Instagram. What's that?
I'm a huge fan of that one. Yep.
Yeah, I posted a picture of it on Instagram after I tasted it in the bar, and I remember seeing it on the shelf over and over and over again. I just kept walking past it. Then I tasted it in this bar, and I took the picture, put it up, and actually Lefroy contacted me back, and made a little comment on it as well because I said I think this is the best whiskey I've ever had, and then I went to my store and went to look for a bottle, and they said, "Oh, that was last year's. We don't have that anymore." And I'm like, "Leave it to me to fall in love with a whiskey that's discontinued. That's just the way it goes for me."
Well, you're not alone there. That happens to me
Yeah.
a lot,
No.
actually. How about
Yeah.
you, Charlie?
I have one, and I've been chasing it. So I just had a birthday a few weeks ago. My wife's like, "Hey, you know what, husband? We got some Angels Envy coming in, cast strength." I was hoping for the rye,
Oh,
but
wow.
instead it was the regular bourbon. That's okay. Thank you, love you, wife.
Mm-hmm.
But the Angels Envy cast strength rye whiskey is the one that I've been hunting. It's nowhere in my market. You can order it online and have it delivered, but you're gonna pay that extra little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't. I like whiskey shopping. I don't necessarily like hunting, but I like whiskey shopping.
Yep. Same here.
It's just interesting. We're ABV hounds or snobs, I guess you could say. Didn't used to be, but we are now in our whiskey lives. Gene and I have a whole bunch of 40s. Gene's bought. I'm like, why are you buying 40s for? Let's get some cast strength up in here. My
There you
gosh.
go.
I would be remiss to say, if I didn't pause and say, if you don't have your Whiskey One topper yet, feel free to reach out to israel@whiskey1.com. Yes, he can tell you. But he's
There it is. There it is. I'll be sending out the
But yeah,
check
Angel's
later
going to be
today.
cask strength rye whiskey. It's probably the one that if I see it and it's out in the wild, I'm going to buy it. That's the one that I want. I'm a rye guy. My favorite rye of all time is the James Pepper Kentucky Finest Oak Series. Gina and I did a series or did a video a couple years ago about what whiskey do we want at our funeral. So I lined up a bunch of James Pepper, like, okay, that's the pepper I want. And I went and bought a case. And then Jean has a Macallan she wants, so we went and bought a case, and those are tucked away. And when one of us die first, the other one's going to drink very nicely.
That's awesome. What about you, Ed?
Well, Charlie, I almost got up and got that bottle because I have the Angel's Envy Cask Strength rye within reason, and that is a very good rye. You will be very pleased
not very
with
good?
when you get it, huh? It is very good. It is very good.
Let me guess.
Yes.
Hey, Ed, it's probably life-changing, and anybody who's not had it yet is not living their full life.
One day I'll live my full life, by gosh.
Well, Charlie, you also got me drinking the Grayson now, because since I picked it up, I wound up pouring some, and this is the batch
Is it not?
2A. It's really good. I was trying to stick to things that were a little lower proof though, because I actually have to go to a whiskey tasting after this, and this is getting up there at 116.1. I was trying to stick in the low hundreds at the most, but you pushed me up there. But it's really good. But as far as the question, you had asked this when we did that Instagram live, and I didn't have an answer then, and I don't really have one now, because
you still don't have the answer.
Well, I'm the same way. There's been some fantastic ones I've had this year. There will be some fantastic ones coming along. There's going to be many that I didn't even know existed. Like, we're going to be taking a trip out to Colorado in a week, and I'm looking forward to trying a bunch of stuff out there that I haven't had before. So that could be my next greatest thing. I mean, I don't know. I'm just always open. I mean, I want to try everything. It doesn't matter what. I will try them all, and I'm just looking for whatever's the best. So, and there's always going to be the next one.
That's right.
You're in Colorado, make sure you hit up Law's Whiskey House.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah, see? Yeah. These guys know.
San Luis Rye Cask Strength. That is an amazing rye. Yeah.
Well, hopefully they'll be open when I get there this time. Last time I was in Denver, they weren't open any of the days I was there. So, I mean, yes, I guess I could have called them in advance, but I'm not that organized.
Well, next time you do go, please say, let them know I said hi. Let them know that, I sent you. They may hook you up with something. I don't know what.
Right, well, I'll try to.
It might just be a high five or a hug, but they'll hook you up with something.
Well, that's something.
Yeah, something better than nothing.
Absolutely.
So I already know what whiskey I'm looking forward to this year, and it's only by happenstance that I even know about it. Okay, I heard about it, but it's something I probably would never have gotten without trying first, and that's Garrison Brothers Cowboy Bourbon. They come out with it every year. Again, by happenstance, I had reviewed a different Garrison Brothers. It was the one that's port cast finished. I don't know why I can't remember the name, but I thought that was fantastic. There it is. Yep. The Guadalupe. That's right. The Guadalupe. So I tried it. I was blown away. It was something very different than I've ever tried before. Did a review, didn't think anything of it. I never really do, but somebody had reached out from Garrison and said, "Hey, we have the Cowboy Bourbon coming out soon. Would you be interested in doing a review? We'll send you a sample." So I thought, yeah, of course. Got a 4-ounce sample bottle, and I'm telling you, never having tried it before, I didn't know what to expect. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, it's bourbon. It's going to taste a lot like probably other bourbons, because I'm a little jaded at this point when it comes to bourbons. And no, sir, that is not the same kind of bourbon. It really blew my socks off. I was I was really pleased by it. It was fantastic. And I know I'm ranting and raving about it. But a buddy of mine that I've met through the community reached out to me. He had to clear some stuff out, needed some money. He's like, hey, I have a cowboy bourbon. If you're interested, I was like, I am. So I finally got my hands on an actual bottle of cowboy bourbon. And this year I'm really hoping that I get a chance to get my hands on the whatever comes out this year.
I
So
think
there's that. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that's the thing with me on bourbon is that I'm to a point where I really want to find those outliers that are just really, really special, that there's a lot of dimension to. And I read somebody the other day who had written that they said they should stop doing finished bourbons, stop messing with it. And I'm going, no, keep
Right.
stretching, keep trying to keep experimenting. I like the experimentation because we all have the basic flavor profile of bourbon down. We know what that is. The question is, where do those very interesting edges come in that make one really stand out to you versus another one?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Agreed.
yeah, I agree with you. That's horrible. Why would you stop trying to push the boundaries of what you can do with whiskey, period?
Yeah.
Yeah, the whiskey boom sucks for price right now because everything's more than what it was 15 years ago. But it's awesome for experimentation. It's awesome for choice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right now there's like this endless sea of different bourbon. I wish it was that way for like Scotch and Irish whiskeys. Yeah. I'm sure if I was in the UK or international right now, that might be the case, but not out here, in New Mexico. I'll just keep it at New Mexico. Like the choice and the variety is just not there.
I will say that this is the best. I will say this is the best time to get into Irish whiskey because Irish whiskey versus Scotch and the rest is less expensive because people don't know, but there's some fantastic stuff coming out of Ireland right now.
What's your favorite Irish?
Oh man, if you find anything Dunville's, they're actually using what comes from Cooley Distillery, which used to be owned by Beam, where Kilbeggan and the rest came out of. But they do something really exceptional in the way that they blend their whiskeys. Now there are some cheap ones out there that are Dunville's. Even the cheap ones, the peated one is actually really nice, and it's like $40 a bottle, which is good. But that's really good. And oh man, you asked me the question, and now it kind of Killoan is a very interesting distillery. He's got a little Portuguese still he works out of, and he is like doing every experimentation in the world. Basically, when I showed up there, it's down this little one-track road to get to the place. It's a little white shed basically that you go into, and he's there smoking oats for his whiskey and doing experiments, mixing Bushmills with some other stuff and trying to figure out where he can push things. So those are really good, but no, there's a lot of them. Dingle's been around for a while, and if you can find anything from Dingle, they're doing some really great stuff. And I know there's a big one I'm missing. Silky, if you find anything Silky.
I love Silky.
Silky is fantastic. $50
that is so
a bottle.
Underrated.
Limavady, you can get Limavady for $50 a bottle, and that is one of the most luxurious mouthfeel single malts that I've had.
I'm not a fan of their
really
cork. Well, it's not a cork, but it's a cap. I'm not a fan of that glass cap.
Yeah, you have to learn to kind of like push it up with your thumb. That way,
I always feel like I'm going to break the bottle when I put it on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my favorite Irish right now, hands down, is still Redbreast, just because they have a lot of variety when it comes to their Redbreast releases. I've heard their Missouri Oak, which is a new release, is fantastic. I'm not in love with the prices, but mean, Redbreast is worth it.
Have you had John's Lane? Because you can usually find John's Lane 12 at a really good price, and that's a pot still, comes out of the same distillery, and I think it's better than Redbreast.
I have not seen that around here. Oh, this guy. This guy.
There you go.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Ed. I'll make sure to give you my address.
You're welcome to come visit anytime.
Well, you know, I will at some point. I know my wife and I have been talking about going to Kentucky for quite some time. We want to hit the trail, and if I do, you could bet I'll be stopping by.
No, definitely.
All right, gents. Hey, this has been a pleasure and an honor to like really dive in and, you know, talk to you guys about your journey. I'm thrilled, and I hope that the audience and those watching like really enjoy hearing your side of things and getting to know you better. I hope we get to do this again too.
Great bunch of people. Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course,
Yeah, thank you.
And
It's
Charlie,
great.
hey, thank you for the shout out for the little Glen hats. I almost thought I forgot to send them to you. I guess I need to send you more now. Nice, nice.
Well,
There you
first of all,
go.
Israel, am I saying the correct website? Where do the folks get these fine whiskey hats at?
They could just ask through YouTube. They can comment.
Oh,
Yeah, it'd be pretty
there
easy.
you
They
go.
can DM me, email at thewhiskey1@gmail.
Whiskey
But
one.
yeah, you should probably DM me because they didn't let me actually have the whiskey1@gmail. Anyway, I'll
Gotcha.
be sure to
Yeah.
put in the details on this video. So, but hey guys,
Boom.
seriously, thank you so much. This has been awesome. And I'm not kidding. I hope we get to do this again. And next time you better bring Gene, Charlie, by the way.
Yes, great. We'll be here the next time. You have my word. We'll do it on a non-milestone birthday.
You got it. All right, guys. And for those watching, I really appreciate your support. Be sure to follow these guys. I'll be sure to add their little tags within the video. But here at Whiskey One, always remember, it's about the one you enjoy. Cheers.
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 Cheers.